I like to invite people who I know and respect and hoping always that there's somebody who wants to present and people who believe in this concept of relentless learning. We do this most Fridays. I used to say we do it every Friday, but that's a hard schedule to keep up with sometimes. Every once in a while, we'll do a special event. I think I'm going to try to do that like once a month where I'm going to do some kind of seminar and a longer presentation. But our general format is that bring a guest on and we talk about two, what I'm going to call big ideas, for lack of a better word. And it's 10 minutes each with some time for question and answer at the end. We're using Zoom this week to try it, so we can probably try to be a little more interactive, a little more chatty with the chat. Mike is going to present on Agile is not a mindset, and I'm really excited to hear what he has to say because we've gone back and forth before. I think it is a mindset, so I'm curious about that. And I think Alan said it when he came in. Mike always. Reason I have Mike here is he always presents some good information on LinkedIn, some posts that make you think, challenges you. I like people who challenge me and challenge the way I think. I'm sure we don't agree on everything, and we don't have to. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited to hear what he has to say about that. And then the way usually it does is I'll present a little bit on something that I'm interested in, and the thing I'm interested in talking about today is assume you're wrong. I think that is power in the VUCA world. And I'll explain a little bit about VUCA for those of you who don't know. So that's this week's. Next week, Shayla will present. Before stepping into others' shoes, we must first step out of our own. So I'm interested to see what she has to say about that. I haven't decided what I'm going to talk about next week, but I've got a whole big list of things, and I usually start on that on Monday. So I'll keep the website and things updated. For those of you who aren't familiar with VUCA or the VUCA MBA, this is the sponsor. This is the new venture I'm trying to get off the ground. Most of you probably know or are aware that I used to do this class called the Agile MBA through my nonprofit called the Job Hackers, and I did that for 7 years, and I taught thousands of people worldwide Agile and Scrum. And one of the things that was most interesting to me was, is this stuff applicable to companies? And every company I've worked at, I've taken this curriculum and I've presented it. And I found that it's pretty valuable to companies. I love doing it. And so I've rebranded it the VUCA MBA because the Job Hackers, the nonprofit, continues to teach their version that they call the Agile MBA, and they're doing well without me there, which is great. The MBA part, people say, "Look, what am I going to get a master's in business administration?" Of course you won't. It's a 3-day class. This VUCA MBA. MBA stands for Mindset for Business Agility, and that's what we need. There's the word mindset. So Mike can hit me with that later. It's what we need if we're going to survive and thrive in this VUCA world, the world that is volatile, complex, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. We need this kind of mindset of business agility. So that's what the VUCA MBA is. I have a couple of special offers if anybody cares for it. Because I did this yesterday. I was giving a presentation yesterday to new Scrum Masters on my book. I just published a new book. It's not a big book. It's not going to change the world probably for a lot of people, but it's interesting for some folks. And so there is a QR code if you want to scan it. You can do that. I'll put the link. I didn't get the link, but I'll get the link into the comments of the LinkedIn Live for those if you don't have it, but you can take a snapshot of it. We're recording this, so you can do that later. You sign up, we'll send you a book for free. The other thing is, I don't know if anybody is interested in, but one of the things I do is I do value, effort, and sequencing of backlogs. It's something that a lot of companies have found very, very profitable for them. Interesting. It's an interesting exercise. I love to do it. So if somebody is interested, if you have a job, you're working with a team or a backlog, you're a product owner or something like that, and you're interested in actually doing that with me in your actual backlog, you can do that as well. So this is a different thing you can sign up for, a QR code. It'll be a half-hour meeting with me. Anyway, looking at the time, I don't want to spend too much. There's some links here for those who are interested in these things. And if you're not, that's okay. But I put those also into the comments section of LinkedIn. And one of them that I want to just draw attention to is my calendar. I love talking about this. I'm passionate about it. I think most of you know that. I think as I look at the people who are here, most of you know me pretty well. I'm happy to speak with you at any time. Just put some time on my calendar. We'll sit down for a half hour and we'll chat. And I just like talking about these things. That's why we do what we do. And I see Mike shaking his head because he's pretty much the same way.
Yeah.
So that's the Relentless Learning Program. And we do that every Friday, or I shouldn't say every Friday, most Fridays at noon. And there is also in there, there's a link to our, what do you call it, emailing list. I'm not going to spam you with a bunch of stuff. I don't like doing that. I don't want to be spammed, but we'll keep you up to date on what's going on, who the guests are. We'll remind you if you forget, et cetera, et cetera. I want to get into what I'm going to talk about today. And since we're a small and mighty crew, if you ever get to a point where you want to kind of interrupt me, you can kind of raise your hand or something like that, which I kind of like, though I suspect because of the snafus with the technology, I'll probably go back to the one that's not as interactive in the future, which is kind of a shame. Assuming that you're wrong, and I refer to this as a VUCA superpower. It's a superpower in this world that's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I just want to talk briefly about that so I can give Mike a little bit more time, and then we can talk a little bit more about the two presentations that are short presentations here. First thing, this is kind of my statement of what I believe the world is from what I've seen, and it's kind of, if you don't agree with me on this one, it's probably not going to help the rest of my argument. So I want to kind of set the baseline for it. I believe that the world is fundamentally different from the world that we evolved to face as human beings. Our mental evolution happened over hundreds of thousands of years, and because of that, we evolved in a world that was much simpler than it is today. And because of that, our mental evolution was built for a simple world. So we are not hardwired for the world we live in today. And I think a lot of folks will probably agree with it. I think it's a fundamentally different world than the world that we evolved to face. But we also evolved this wonderful thing called the human brain, which can figure these things out. So what I'm saying is basically our intuition is built for a world that we're not in. So we kind of think about things a little bit more. It's counterintuitive. If your intuition is built on the physical world, it's built on the simple world, then your intuition is going to make decisions about the world, assuming that it's simple and easy and mechanical in nature. But we need, the world being different, we need different strategies to survive and thrive. I don't want to just survive. I mean, survival is great. I want to thrive. So how do we thrive in this world is really what I'm going to talk about. Here's another problem with the way our brains are hardwired. And this comes to us from behavioral economics, psychology, sociology, et cetera. We're programmed to confirm our existing beliefs. It's confirmation bias. It's one of the most insidious ones. We don't think of things scientifically. I'll talk about it in a little bit. Therefore, in order to ward off our confirmation bias, we need to remain humble. That's a tough thing. It's a tough thing for me. If you talk to anyone who knows me really well, they won't say that I'm a bastion of humility. At least that's the way it usually is. But I think it's really, really important. I know that my good friend Kyle Arate, who's been on the show, a lot of you know him because he posts a lot on LinkedIn. You've probably seen some of his stuff. He talks about this a lot too. Humility. In fact, I think when Mike and I were talking about this, we talked about this concept of humility. It's just so important because we don't really know what's going on, and we don't want to just confirm what we believe. And if we assume that we're wrong about our perspective and the things that we see and believe about the world, then it's going to open us up to a world of possibilities. We're going to be open for criticism, which is one that I'm terrible with, by the way. Usually it takes me a while. My first initial knee-jerk reaction when somebody criticizes me is to put up a wall and say, wait a minute, I didn't, that's a human nature. But as I tell my wife all the time, John, I say, I do listen, even though my first reaction is probably not the most desirable. I try to be open to these things. And this leads to continuous, dare I say, relentless learning and adaptability, which is one of the things that is necessary in this VUCA world. We need to continue to evolve. I want you to think about the things we're facing today. Mike and I were talking before to hear about AI. Think about AI and all the changes it's going to do. We have to be able to be open to thinking about the world differently, to seeing the world differently, in order for us to survive and thrive in this world as employees, right? As managers, as leaders. Here's the other thing that's important to me, though. I think most people would find that science is a good thing. I think everything that we enjoy today was to a certain degree given to us through science, right? I mean, we look at germ theory and the ability. We just went through a pandemic, and God forbid if we didn't have some of the vaccines and other things. I know that's controversial, but if we didn't have those things, we can only imagine what happened because it happened 100 years ago during the Spanish flu. Science is generally a good thing. I'm not saying it's universally a good thing, but it's generally a good thing. And assuming you're wrong is more scientific. Why? Because scientists begin with a hypothesis. And I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but what we want to do is we want to say, here's what we think is going on. But the vast majority, and not the people here necessarily, but the people that we know, love, and work with, don't really get science, I think. This is just my general perception. They don't know that what a scientist does is not seek confirmation for their hypothesis. What they do is they create a null hypothesis, which is the opposite, and they try to prove the opposite. And when they can't prove, this is called falsifiability, when they can't prove it, then we say, wait a minute, this might be something that we should pay more attention to. This is something that's more credible. And as we continue to try to disprove things and we continue not being able to disprove things, then those things gain weight. These are most likely things that are quote unquote true. But that's not how most people, I think about science. I think they think, hey, I've got a hypothesis, let me go find evidence for it. That's not how it works. And I'm not saying scientists themselves don't do this, by the way. The opposites of science, or and I did a short query on this with my friend ChatGPT just to confirm that some of these things that I'm thinking are correct. So I'm either ChatGPT and myself are incorrect, or I'm probably on the right track. The opposites of science are dogmatism, pseudoscience, which is proving what you want to be true, subjectivity, personal intuition, ignorance, or lack of inquiry. These are not necessarily good things, especially in this VUCA world we live in. And I'm sure that we've all seen people in leadership positions who might display some of those things. I've often said, I remember giving a talk many years ago for the Oakland PMI, they said, tell me 2 reasons why Agile transformations fail. And I said, it's a lack of humility, both intellectual humility, I don't know everything, and intellectual curiosity. I want to know. I want to find out. And doing so really means that we sometimes have to admit we're wrong. So to wrap this up, because I'm looking at time, I want to make sure that I stay within the bounds. Assuming that we're wrong about something in the way we perceive the world, the way we think about the world, will lead us to put in place the feedback mechanisms that are necessary for us to navigate the VUCA world. If we look at agility, if we strip away the word agile, because that gives us problems sometimes, though I think most of us here probably understand what I would say by that. It's about feedback. If you look at something like Scrum as a framework and all the other frameworks, the reason that we would utilize them, and a lot of folks don't tell us this, unfortunately, they just say do it or die. The reason we would utilize these frameworks is they are feedback mechanisms. When you look at Scrum, you have daily feedback mechanisms in the daily Scrum. You have regular feedback mechanisms through retrospective and review and refinement and planning. What this does is it reduces risk, because waterfall is generally risky because you've intentionally removed the feedback mechanism from the system by design. And waterfall works in a world that's simple, in a world that's maybe even complicated if we want to use Knevin terms, but it certainly doesn't work as well in the VUCA world. So assuming we're wrong will lead us to trying to disprove or prove that we're wrong, either way you want to go. And you're going to have to put in place the things that are necessary to help understand, am I really wrong or not? So that's kind of my thesis and argument for the day. Um, and I don't think I have, I don't have anything else. Good. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Another way of looking at the world. Um, I wanted to introduce Mike Lyons. I talked a little bit about before. Um, we know that it's a small agile community. And I see Mike's name come up on my LinkedIn feed a lot. And then we sat down and talked, and we know a number of individuals the same, and our names and paths have crossed in the past. But Mike, you want to talk a little bit about you have a company that you have started, KaiRise, if I get it right. I think you're wearing the swag now. You want to tell us a little bit about KaiRise and a little bit about your journey and where you are, and if you have anything that you want to plug, I plugged my book and my consulting. If there's anything you want to plug, that would be appropriate as well.
Thanks. Yeah. And hey, by the way, thank you for that opening. I took some comprehensive notes, and thank you for challenging and encouraging deeper thought. That's really good. This idea that assuming we're wrong opens us up to receive criticism really stuck out to me. So thank you for that. And
You're welcome, and I think that the key to that is really that it can help lead to the humility we're looking for. The one thing I didn't say is a lot of times for those who've worked with me in the past, I will often say I'm probably wrong about this, or I'll tell me where I'm wrong about this to solicit that feedback of where you are wrong, just making that assumption. Anyway, continue. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, no, it's good. Well, again, thank you for having me. My name is Mike Lyons, and you know, I've been in IT my whole career. I have this gray hair, and I do have five children, and three of them are teenagers. A lot of this gray hair might be their fault, but most of it's from being in IT for so daggum long. I mean, you know, this is like a really hard industry, and in the early days of my work in IT, I sort of moved into this idea of project management and you know, studying the PMI PMBOK and doing like traditional project management. And then in 2006, I was working on a large scale statewide voter registration system, multi-year, multi-million dollar project. You can kind of think what it might take to put in a statewide voter registration system. It's kind of a big project. I was in Colorado and Secretary of State's office, and I worked in elections for about a decade. And but I remember walking by, we're in like month 3 of requirements gathering. I remember walking by on break, walking by the IT department. They were kind of in the basement, you know, and no one wanted to be around them. And I walked by one of their conference rooms, and they had the Agile Manifesto posted on the door. And I read the Agile Manifesto, and y'all, like, I'm not even making this up. I felt like a physical relief come over me. I was exhausted from 3 months of requirements gathering. Yeah, it was probably, you know, multiple years of traditional sort of projects. And I read the manifesto, and it like I had a physical reaction. I was like, this is better. You know, the manifesto, it's not very hard. It's not, you know, it's maybe not complete either, but whatever. And I just remember thinking, wow, like this is better. And that just started me on a journey of learning. And I remember taking my first 2-day certified Scrum Master class and just like loving it. I just loved it. I thought this is something else. And so, you know, that was 2007. I probably took that class and kind of just continued to learn and grow in that. And here today, the pandemic hit, and I'm a full-time Agile consultant for a large global consulting firm. But a group of us who worked there, three of us, right when the pandemic hit, we started our own company called KaiRise. And we're all three professional trainers in Agile now. So we consult, we're like doing delivery. We also train, and we train with IC Agile, the International Consortium for Agile. And we worked with IC Agile, and we said, hey, we got this new company, KaiRise. Would you be interested in any form of self-paced, on demand, any device, anywhere in the world, Agile foundations training that would end in a certification, an industry recognized certification, the IC Agile Certified Professional, the ICP. And they're like, they were not, they were like, I don't know, really? Because, 2 days in a classroom, we can get people's hands on the material, we can test things, they can interact. And we said, okay, don't change any of your learning outcomes. We'll meet them right where they're at. And we went through their list of learning outcomes. Maybe some of you know them. It's page after page of, multiple, I think there's 50 different learning outcomes. The learner shall interact with a burn down chart. I mean, it's like that specific. And so we came up with these online ways to have learner interaction. It's easy stuff like you could imagine, like discussion boards, but we've also introduced a lot of chatbot functionality where you're chatting interactively in the session. You upload components and we real time provide feedback. We've got an AI functionality now that Larry was talking about, something he'd been working on, where you ask a question. It's called Ask Mike Anything, and we will actually pull up that video segment. We'll teach it to you and pull up that instant video segment recollection. Very highly interactive. Anyway, they approved us to do that. We're currently the only certified IC Agile self-paced training out there. And our motto is this: we want you to learn in the flow of work. And so we approach enterprises. We do a lot of one-off sales, but we really approach enterprises with the idea that foundational Agile training, when it's instructor-led, 2-day instructor-led, has a place. It just doesn't scale. You can't train 500 people in a year. You need multiple full-time instructors, and they're not teaching every day. And the cost is, they're kind of expensive. So we can do it in twice the training, half the time. That's KaiRise's model. We pursue enterprise training. We really see it as part of onboarding. And our biggest client is a Fortune 500 consulting firm, and they've had wonderful success cutting their training budgets in half over in 2023. And we have a good contract for 2024. So that's KaiRise. You can learn more at kairise.com. And I've got some coupons to pass out here later. We'd love to send multiple people from your organizations through and see if it's a fit for your organization. So that's a little bit about what we do. And I'll send those codes out here. Maybe we'll post them, or Larry will help me distribute them. I don't have a cool, what did you have, like a barcode thing?
QR codes, man. It's the wave of the past.
It's the way, yeah, 1997 called. I'm keeping up. All right, so but I tell you what, let me kind of pivot. I don't know about y'all, but I just love what I do. And when Larry and I started chatting over LinkedIn, maybe y'all found this too. It is a small community. Yesterday, this is a quick story. Yesterday, I was yapping about something about the improvement kata. Y'all know the Toyota improvement kata. You've heard of this, right? It's been around a long time, right? And you might remember this name then, Mike Rother. Mike Rother go to YouTube and and Mike's kind of he's got it, right? He's talking, he knows the improvement kata. Well, I had said something about how I was recommending it to a friend, and I got a LinkedIn connection request from Mike Rother. And I'm like, dude, are you Mike Rother? He replies, yes, I am. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was just talking about you to a friend. And so he's got me on the calendar. We're going to hang out. My point is not like, oh, hey, look, I know Mike Rother. No. My point is, I know Larry Apke. Are you kidding me? Like, we're hanging out together. It's a wonderful, powerful place to meet people. And to me, this is the biggest power of what we do as Agile delivery folks. So just would encourage you, and again, as a welcome, really excited to partner together. So Larry, should we kind of pivot and maybe talk about my topic, or did you want to pause here? What's the format?
Yeah, no, I'd love for you to do that. I'm looking at time, and we're pretty good on what we normally do. So that's the good news. But I don't know if you have any slides to share, if you just want to talk about it. But
I don't.
I'm very curious to hear what you have to say, and I bet you we'll have some questions.
I'm a consultant, but we got enough slides. Here's the thing, this idea that Agile is a mindset. Let's kind of pivot. Let's talk about this as a topic for a second. I wonder if perhaps some things have been lost in this construct that Agile is a mindset. Think with me for a moment of all the different mindsets that you might bump into on a daily basis. There's the sort of scarcity mindset, or we don't want to have a scarcity mindset. There's a fixed mindset. There's a growth mindset. There's a profit-driven mindset. There's all these different mindsets that kind of surround us. And it kind of becomes, it's like fitness is a mindset. If my personal trainer started our first session with a statement, I'd be like, what do I do? Like, what do I do with that? How do I acquire a fitness mindset? Acquiring a mindset, it like comes from action by replacing old habits with new habits. That's why I'm such a fan of training. I think it's important that we get the fundamentals right. We show people a new way. The key is doing, not just thinking. I think the other piece to consider when we think about Agile as a mindset is that perhaps, and remember, like what Larry would remind me, let me start with, I could be wrong. What do I know? But I wonder, I wonder with us, is it an oversimplification? Like reducing to a mindset implies that its essence is sort of philosophical. Now, I've worked with a lot of C-suite executives. I'm sure you have too. Few leaders have appetite or patience for kind of heady philosophical mumbo jumbo when it comes to getting stuff done. Top line revenue growth, bottom line cost reduction. The boardroom is filled with those discussions. It's not, well, where did we have a fitness mindset? Did we have a growth mindset? Did we have an agile mindset? No, man. It's like, are we making profit? Leaders want proven and rigorous management approaches that mitigate risk and get work done. Ironically, of course, this is what exactly, maybe even not ironically, like this is what agile ways of working offer. But you know what offers that are the ways of working. They are the actual ways of working. The third thing, and this is my final one, is that it kind of, I wonder, does it imply that it's kind of in our head? Saying agile is a mindset suggests that we can just sort of be agile and reap all the benefits by just thinking differently. Faster time to value, improved quality, delighting customers. Those don't happen because you think differently. Those happen because you do differently. Truly seeing the benefits of agility requires an enduring commitment to changes in how we do work. There's a saying I love to use with my C-suite friends is, you want to change the culture? Change the way you work. Want to change the culture? Change the way you work. Culture changes last. We know that. Cotter taught us that. I think it was Cotter. Culture changes last. And certainly it doesn't happen overnight. And certainly it's not because we're just now thinking about it differently. So then like, well, what could it be? Well, I wonder Agile as an approach to delivery, an approach to managing work that is complex and it's VUCA, it's volatile, it's all those things. And it emphasizes Agile's emphasis on, Agile pros, incremental development, fast feedback, continuous planning, continuous learning. Is this what you want? I used to work with a guy named Kenny. We nickname him Kenny, is this what you want? Because he would like build something for the PO, be like, is this what you want every day? Is this what, enough to where the PO was like, stop already. Like, customer centricity, of course, technical excellence. And these are disciplines, empowered teams. These are like how we do work. I think about it this way, sort of to sum up. My experience with agility came when I read the Agile Manifesto and began to sort of realize that is freeing. I told the story like I felt a physical change, but the benefits weren't reaped until I changed the way I worked. I went to my certified Scrum Master training. I was like, that's how it works. Then I joined a team in IT and I was like, oh, that's what it means to do delivery in a 2-week sprint. And I saw my first sprint review with a demo. I was like, no kidding. That's how it is. Here's how that story ends. Over time, I became a product owner in that elections group. I worked there for a decade. I became a product owner. And I remember working with my first Agile team in the role of product owner. I didn't know what I was doing. I took my certified Scrum Master. What the heck? And Quentin, one of the developers, we had done sprint planning and he had asked the questions and they started sprinting. And like day 2, he's emailing me and I just ignored it. He calls me on, we had desk phones at the time, called me on the desk phone, leaves a message. I got the flashing red light. I'm like, it's Quentin. I'm not going to call back. Calls me on my mobile device. Now, like, what developer is calling me on my mobile device? Quentin, what's up? And he's asking me these questions. I'm like, dude, like, I don't I have time. He's like, it's a 2-week sprint. I got to have these answers. You're a PO. You need to be answering these things. I wasn't coming to dailies, for example. And after 2 weeks, they demoed douglasvotes.com. By the way, you can go visit douglasvotes.com. It's the real website. It was up in 2 weeks, this like live website. It didn't have much on it, but it was live. It was a first cut of value delivery. I remember going, well, now I'm hooked, right? I saw it. And I said, what the heck is this? In 2 weeks, how is that possible? He said, Quentin goes, we can go faster. And I was like, I'm in, man. Tell me about it. I had to see it. I had to see delivery before my mind hadn't changed until I saw delivery. So again, that's kind of how I think about it. When I think about Agile, may not be a mindset. Thanks. That's kind of the thoughts.
Here's my question. We've got some folks here. Does anybody have any questions or comments about mindset? Because I'd like to give you the first crack at it. Alan, I'm looking at you. You're smiling.
Oh, well, I have 14 questions. But we don't have time for that. So my first question, which I was typing in the chat, but I'll go ahead and speak it. It's possible to do Scrum without trust, for example. You can do all the activities of Scrum without trust. So while I'm not against the emphasis of, or the idea that doing things differently will change culture and so on, there, in my experience, there needs to be a transition from doing the actions to doing the actions, understanding why and what are the attitudes that support those actions better. And so I wonder, Mike, if you could kind of talk about that transition. How do you take people from doing the things to understanding why they're doing the things and how their attitude makes the things better?
Yeah, it's a good one. Thank you, Alan, for pointing that out. And again, just like sort of my thoughts or my experience with this is it's from the doing that our minds are changed. We just don't start with a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I've sat in training classes and myself has said Agile's more than a set of practices and tools. It's a mindset. Maybe eventually, but the only way to change people's minds is to actually do stuff differently. I agree with you. We can just jam Scrum in. That's one of the beauties of it. It's a prescription. It's an immutable prescription. Like, right, we get it. It's you do these things, you have these roles, and it works. It just starts working. Crap starts spinning out the pipeline. Is it the right stuff? Is it small enough? Is stuff rolling over sprint over sprint? Yeah, sure, got it. But immediately we've changed people's way of working. And so I don't think in the end people's minds don't get changed. They sort of are, still in the PMI way of thinking because they've changed the way they work. But I think it starts with changing the way we work. It probably doesn't end there.
There's Olaf put in some stuff in the chat. I'm gonna read it for those who might stumble upon this later, the recording. I'm not sure the delineation between mindset and practice is useful. They form an independent pair. Mike, you just summed up the reading, or that reading the manifesto is what resonated with you before you knew much about the practices and details. I think the philosophy mindset versus practice is just a way to open discussion or dialogue. And he's got another comment here, so then I'll let you comment on it, Mike. Human system dynamics has an idea they call the learning triangle, which shows the interplay between theory and practice and how you move from one to the other, depending on where you are challenged at the moment. Your response, Mike.
Oh, that's good. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, Olaf, thank you for the question. I mean, it may be like not helpful to divide the two. I totally can receive that, man. I will just say that when I say Agile's not a mindset, lots of people want to talk to me. So that's good. I'm like, let's talk. I'd rather just do that than sort of toe the line of, 2-week sprints are the best idea. Well, whatever. Like, so does everybody. So everybody thinks that. But so sometimes just sort of stirring the pot. But it is an interesting bit. And you rightly point out that when I read the manifesto, and this is, I'm processing as I'm thinking, so forgive me. Maybe was that me changing my mind right then? Maybe. Yeah, that's fair. I can receive that.
I think it's interesting, and one of the things that Mike, I don't know if you've seen, but I've been lately giving a presentation on it, and I don't know if it's 100% scientifically accurate, but I think it's close enough, which is we have three things at play. The way we see the world,
Mm,
which influences the way we think about the world, and the way we think about the world influences the way we behave in the world, and the way we behave in the world influences what we see and think. Those three things are kind of
yeah.
intermeshed. And
Yeah.
I think that's really where it is. When I'm making my claim for mindset, in my training and my practice and in transformation, the reason I'm emphasizing mindset is we tend, I think, overemphasize the doing without the understanding of the mindset change. And I'm, when I say mindset, I'm more referring to the way we look at the world, because I think that's the key. I think that's the real key is we spend so much time doing, right? We force people to do certain things, and then we assume that it's going to change their way they see things, but it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes. And then we assume that maybe we would talk a little bit about thinking, so we get a little theory, but we never come in and say, hey, you need to view the world differently because it's a different world. This is why I keep emphasizing the VUCA world is fundamentally different. Until you see that, you're probably going to have some hard times with understanding why we do some of the things that we do and why they're successful. You may still do them, but I've found in my practice that if you want lasting change, you got to change the way people see the world, the way they view the world. What would you say to that?
I appreciate that. I think I'm just wondering, in 2023, if we didn't see quite a bit of the opposite, where we saw, I mean, I've been in some coaching trainings where the idea was, as an agile coach, you have to help people know that the answer lives within them. And I raised my hand. I'm like, no, it doesn't. They don't freaking know that 2-week sprints and a time box of a potentially shippable increment is better than 80% earned value delivery. They don't know that inside them. And so I got to teach them how to do it. And then after I teach them how to do it, they're going to be like, well, holy crap, that's better. And that'll change their mind.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, because again, behavior can change the way you see, and I don't want people to go too far down it's just, some kind of Zen touchy-feely
Right.
stuff, right? That drives.
But didn't we see a lot of that over the past 5 years? I mean, life coaches being agile coaches. Let me just say this. I don't need a life coach. I'm in product development.
Yeah. No, I agree too. I mean, we're much closer on things than it might appear, because it depends on how you define mindset, et cetera. I think you would agree with
Sure.
what I'm saying, and I agree with what you're saying. It's just the interesting thing to me is I don't like the touchy-feely kind of stuff either, right? In the end, you have to make money. And that's the bottom line. But in my mind, in order to make money, you have to see the world differently. And then you'll start, thinking and behaving differently. Because I think we skip over that part too much. I don't even think the touchy-feely stuff is seeing the world differently. I think it's just, certain buzzwords that somebody picked up in some kind of feel-good
Yeah,
stuff. But then
I'm
again,
with you.
I certainly could be wrong about that. There is a very human element. But Alan, you got your hand up. I want to make sure you get a chance.
Well, I've already had a chance, so I raised my hand hoping somebody would jump in front of me. But mindset, to me, I think about it a lot. And one of the things that saying you need an agile mindset, to me, is very shallow. And I'll use a story from me, right? I spent 3 years working for the worst boss I ever had when I was a software engineer, and micromanaging, denigrating, right? All these things that you can think of as a bad boss. I experienced it. And when I got out of that work, it took me years to come to realize that my manager wanted me to disagree with him at the new company. In other words, my experiences with a manager that were bad had trained me into a mindset that said I must please my manager. So we carry mindsets about everything from our childhood, from elementary school, from college, from that job that we got fired from when we worked at the restaurant, right? It's changing your mindset is not something that you can do in a year. It takes longer. And so I think there's a balance between what you're saying, Mike, about do things because that helps you see that you're not seeing your own mindset that's filtering the world to you. And Larry, you're saying, hey, we got to look at the world differently. And that's exactly what I'm saying is there's a certain filter that we have that we don't even realize it until we dig into things. And so I like the idea of thinking about and working on mindset, but somehow there has to be a balance between just do the things and that'll change your mindset and only thinking about mindset, right? There's a balance that we have to strike because it's deep, it's broad, it's not just think a different way, please.
Yeah, Mike, you want to respond to that? I mean, I agree with what I want to say, and I think it's kind of what we're all kind of saying here that, you know, you need that kind of balance. And I think that's what true coaching is, by the way, at least in my mind, is the coach is saying, okay, trust me enough, we're going to do something different. It might feel a little uncomfortable to you, but start doing it. And then I'm going to start pointing out what this is doing for you and how this is different than what you've done before and how you might want to start viewing the world differently. There's a lot about trust and of somebody willing to have, again, going back to my thing, the humility to be coached. Because there are some people who are coachable and some people aren't. When I was younger, I was not very coachable. It's debatable whether I still am, but I'm hoping I'm a little bit better as I get older. One last thing, because we're bumping up on time, and I want to keep to the thing, but Olaf has another thing in the comments. I do want to read it as part of the record. I think that life coaching discussion is not about coaching people's lives. It's about using the principles of coaching to engage with people. You engage someone differently when you come from a place of this person I'm with is competent and knows stuff, and I may be able to partner with them to help them make a change that they can see as better, yet if I approach it from a place of respect and curiosity. Mike, I'll give you a chance to respond to that.
Excellent. Brilliant. So well said. Yeah. Thank you for that. And when we approach it from a different avenue of, it's say the opposite, this person I'm with is incompetent and knows nothing. I mean, then yeah, it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't really matter if you have good practices or not. It's just going to be crap, right? It's going to be bad for everybody. So
I think
yeah,
I think it's great, Mike. I really appreciate it, Alan, Olaf, rest of you folks for joining. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you putting through the fact that this didn't work technologically as much as we wanted it to. Probably go back to the other format with future ones. And one of the things I do want to say is, you know, we're going to do this most Fridays. I hope that you join this subscription. You're on the list. You see it in the LinkedIn feed. You join us from time to time. Where we present two big ideas. Every once in a while, we'll have a larger presentation. I'm going to try to do like one a month so that I can present some of the things that may help others in their journey in this VUCA / Agile world.